Hey podcasters, welcome to the Shaun Herr show, where we learn how to break the slimming cycle by mastering your mind, meals and movement, helping you finally achieve a balanced lifestyle and long-lasting results. Today's episode is part 3 of a mini-series I'm calling All About Calories. I decided to write this mini-series because I've been answering a lot of questions online recently in Facebook groups, helping people understand weight loss a bit better. Most people have the same kinds of questions, frustrations, sticking points, and things they're confused about because of all the conflicting and basically incomplete information they've been getting. In part 1, we talked about what calorie balance is and why no matter what, that principle is what all weight loss or gain comes down to, with the exception of water weight. In a nutshell, calories are just a measure of energy. If your body is consuming more calories from food than it's using up, it's going to store those calories for later. And if your body is using up more calories than it's consuming from food, it's going to dip into the energy that it previously stored for later. It's not quite as simple as food in versus exercise out, which is the way most people see it. And the reason most people feel like it doesn't add up and therefore stop believing that calorie balance is a thing. It is. You can't get around it. There's just more going on than you probably realise. I'm not going to go through it all again now. That's what part 1 was for. So if you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about and you're wondering what else is going on that you're missing when it comes to calorie balance, go and listen to part 1. I'll wait here on pause till you get back. In part 2, we looked at 5 diets. We broke the methods down one by one to show how even though they all work differently, they all boil down to calorie balance. They all work to create a calorie deficit to make weight loss happen. And funnily enough, they all basically just reduced calorie-dense food, what you might often call junk food, and increased protein intake. Every diet that is successful in making you lose weight comes down to creating a calorie deficit. And that's an awesome thing to know. It takes the mystery and wonder out of diets. It means there are no hidden secrets to fat loss, just different methods and approaches to creating a calorie deficit. Even the approach I use in my online coaching academy just comes down to this. And I'm going to explain why that is too later in this episode. Before that though, I want to talk about something that was quite mysterious to me for a while in the world of calories and weight loss. A magic number that seemed to pop up all over the place. A number that was cited by personal trainers, doctors, and even dieticians. It seemed as prevalent in the world as pi and the Fibonacci sequence. It was weird. I saw it everywhere. And you probably have too. It's the mythical 1200 calories. So many people on Facebook pop up saying they're on 1200 calories. People on Instagram ask questions around being on 1200 calories. It's everywhere. And I wanted to know why. So I did some digging and I found out. The first thing I did was to go on Facebook weight loss groups that in total have literally thousands of members. And I asked them this. I've seen a lot of people recently saying their calorie target is 1200. Where did you find that number and why is that the number you chose to aim for? While I waited for some answers, I headed over to Google and literally just typed 1200 calories to see what came up. And what I learned from that simple search was that 1200 calories is the minimum recommended calorie intake for women. Below that, it's dangerous. The equivalent for men is 1500. Obviously, this doesn't take into account how tall you are or anything like that. Obviously, if you're 4'9" and your friend is 6'1", you're going to have a different minimum recommended calorie intake. This 1200 is just a blanket, completely generic, easy to give answer. And that's where this all starts. And I feel like that last part I said there, the fact that it's an easy answer to give, is a key part of the prevalence of this number. Once I headed back over to Facebook to check out the answers to my little survey question, and there were a lot of answers, 356 comments worth to be exact, I noticed a few things cropping up over and over again. A lot of people said their PT, personal trainer, had told them they should be on 1200 calories to lose weight. A lot of people said their doctor had told them they should be on 1200 calories to lose weight. Some people got it from a weight machine. Some people got it from a calorie calculator. One person said they got it from the version of Weight Watchers they were on way back in the 1980s. All that taken into account, and with a bit more digging in some areas, as far as I can tell, the prevalence of the mythical 1200 calories is down to 2 things in a lot of cases. Number 1 is laziness on the part of professionals, and number 2 is impatience on the part of the people trying to go it alone. And here's why. If you use a calorie calculator to find out how many calories you should be having a day, you will not get a nice round number, because the number the calculator spits out is based on your height, your weight, your sex, your age, your activity level, and a funky little formula to put all that together. So you might get a nice round number, but it's not likely, and it's even less likely that so many people would come out to exactly 1200. This is where the laziness of professionals comes in. A lot of people responding to my question said their personal trainer or nutritionist or dietitian or doctor told them to follow a 1200 calorie diet. Now, if these professionals took 2 minutes to put their client or patient's information into a calorie calculator, they'd be able to give their patient or client a calorie maintenance level that was individualized to that person. Then if they took just a little more time, they could explain that that calculation was essentially a rough guess. If you really want to know your daily calorie requirement, you just have to track how many calories you're currently eating for about a week. And if you're maintaining your current weight, then the calorie intake you tracked would be your actual required calorie intake for maintenance. Then if you want to lose weight, all you'd have to do is reduce your current intake by 100 calories a day. Say for example your maintenance calories was 2000. Just drop that to 1900. Your body will dip into its energy stores to make up the difference, and that's how you lose weight. Once you find you're maintaining your weight again, that means your maintenance calories is now 1900. So drop it again to 1800. Do that and repeat until you get to where you want to be. That literally took about 2 minutes to explain. But apparently time is too much in demand to explain calorie balance that much to people. And it's easier to just say, download MyFitnessPal, aim for 1200 calories a day, off you pop. Or maybe their PT or doctor doesn't even recommend 1200. They just recommended MyFitnessPal and let their clients crack on with whatever MyFitnessPal recommends they aim for, which I've actually had clients tell me in the past was the extent of the nutrition support they got from a previous PT. And if they didn't like counting calories, well, that was just too bad. That's just what you gotta do. Which is infuriating. And just such bullshit, because it honestly is just so lazy on the part of the PT and an absolute disservice to someone who is directly paying you money to help them. But anyway, that's professional laziness covered. Now for the second part, which we actually just started touching on. A lot of people said their coach recommended 1200 calories. The other most common thing that came up was that MyFitnessPal recommended 1200 calories, which, to reiterate, seems very unlikely given all the different factors that go into the calculation. But that is the case, so what's going on? Well, after one useful comment where someone mentioned the goal level they set in MyFitnessPal, something twigged in my brain, so I jumped onto the app myself to test my theory. MyFitnessPal, like any other calorie calculator, takes into account all the things I mentioned before. It already knows how old you are, your sex, and your height from your profile. So to work out your calorie recommendation, you go to a little screen where the app asks you your current weight, your goal weight, but that one doesn't really matter, your activity level, and here's the key, your weekly goal. There are 4 options for how fast you want to lose weight. For the sake of experiment, I set my current weight as 80 kilos. If I set my weekly goal to the slowest rate of weight loss to lose 1/4 kilo a week, I get a daily target of 1950 calories. If I set my weekly goal to lose 1/2 kilo a week, I get a daily calorie target of 1700 calories a day. If I set my weekly goal to lose 3/4 kilo a week, I get a daily calorie target of 1500 calories a day. A gradual reduction in calories to create a larger calorie deficit, resulting in faster weight loss. That makes sense. So if I choose the fastest weight loss option, I should get an even lower daily calorie target. Yeah? Well, let's see. If I set my weekly goal to lose 1 full kilogram a week, I get 1500 calories a day. How does that work? How can hitting 1500 calories a day get me 3/4 kilo down a week, but 1500 also be how many I need to get me to a full kilo down every week? It's because MyFitnessPal needs to cover the backs. Remember we said 1200 was the minimum recommended intake for women and 1500 was the minimum recommended for men? Those are government recommended minimums. A faster rate of fat loss, a full kilo, would require more of a deficit, meaning less than 1500 calories. But MyFitnessPal seems to have a cap on how low its recommendations are allowed to go. If they went any lower than the government recommended minimums and you got sick, you could blame MyFitnessPal. It's really just a way to cover their backs. funnily enough, the people who responded saying MyFitnessPal recommended 1200 calories to them were all women. And the constant minimum from men using MyFitnessPal was 1500. So it all makes sense now, doesn't it? And all this interesting stuff is why I put the second part of the Mythical 1200 down to impatience. I told you earlier that all you need to do to lose weight consistently is eat just a little bit less than you need, just 100 calories, and you will lose weight doing that, nice and steadily, and more importantly, usually more consistently. If I'd set my weekly goal in MyFitnessPal to be to maintain my weight, I'd have 2,250 calories a day. To lose weight, I'd only need to drop to 2,150 at first, then a bit less and a bit less as time goes on, rather than 1,500 right out the gate. Smaller changes are more manageable and much easier to keep up long term. Plus, I don't know about you, but I'd much rather eat 2,000 calories of food and lose weight than a whole 500 less than that. And that's the Mythical 1200 calories, where it comes from, why it's so prevalent, and why you can forget about it. If you do have any questions about all of that, drop me an email at info@shaunherr.co.uk. Or if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, just leave a comment. Before we move on to the next bit, if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, do me a quick favor and give this video a quick like. Literally, it'll take you less than a second and you can have it done by the end of this sentence. That simple click lets Facebook and YouTube know this video is awesome and make it more likely to push it into other people's feeds. You can massively help me out just by clicking that button. So go on. All right, time for part 2 of part 3. Last week we went through 5 different diets and looked at how every single one boils down to calorie balance. Everyone is just creating a calorie deficit through slightly different methods. And funnily enough, they all happen to do that by cutting out highly processed, calorie-dense foods and increasing protein intake. So how do I do it? How do I get my students results in my online coaching academy? As you should be able to guess, we use the same principle, creating a calorie deficit, just through another slightly different method. It's a method that I like because it's really simple and it works for a lot of people because it's easy to understand and apply. The basis of it is the traffic light food guide. Every food that goes into your mouth is classified as either a green food, an amber food, or a red food. In a nutshell, green foods are the most nutrient dense, minimally processed foods. Red foods, on the other side, are the calorie dense, highly processed, typically junk kind of foods. And amber foods are in the middle. They're not quite as nutritious as the green foods, but they're not quite as calorific as the red foods either. Those foods are all split up into protein sources, carb sources, fat sources, and then everything else like drinks, condiments, and seasonings. Using those lists, learning what's what, I want you to start getting a good source of protein at every meal. For me, this system makes things a lot easier. When you start thinking in this green, amber, red kind of way, it makes it really simple to make decisions when you're out and about. Once you've become familiar with what kinds of foods are on which lists, it's easy to make a decision, or a better decision, between 2 choices. All you need to do is keep a track of what you're eating according to the traffic light guide and shift your balance over towards the green side. But how does that create fat loss results? Well, you can probably guess, but I'll take you through it just in case. Remember, the green foods are the less calorie dense and the red foods are the more calorie dense. So if you shift the balance of foods in your diet over to the green side, you'll be eating fewer calorie dense foods, which means you'll end up consuming fewer calories overall, resulting in a calorie deficit, which leads to weight loss. And then of course we've got the increased protein intake as well. Remember, protein makes you feel more full, and I've been reminded of that since I started adding protein powder to my smoothies again. I feel so much more full after a smoothie with protein than one without. And if you feel more full for longer, you're going to be less likely to snack or overeat at your next meal, which again will mean a lower overall calorie intake, which will help you to create a calorie deficit, resulting in you losing weight. Then of course we've got your training program to make sure the weight you do lose is fat and not muscle. And that's it. Really easy and no more special than any other approach. It's just the one that I like, that I find works for a lot of people. If you like the sound of that approach and you want to step up your weight loss goals, get in touch. You can sign up to the Academy by going to shaunherr.co.uk/academy, or drop me an email to info@shaunherr.co.uk if you want to ask anything about how the Academy works and if it might be right for you. I'm not really sure how to wrap all this up now. Well, obviously the first thing is to say thanks for tuning in and listening to this mini-series. I really hope it's helped to clear up some areas of confusion you might have had, and nutrition and calories and diets all make a bit more sense to you now. If you feel like you have learned something from this mini-series, I'd love to know what. Again, drop me an email to info@shaunherr.co.uk and let me know. Or ask about anything you're still not 100% on. I love hearing from you, so please do get in touch. If you like this episode, leave us a like and a comment and share it with your friends if you're watching on Facebook. And if you're watching on YouTube, it would be great if you could click the like button, drop a comment and subscribe to the channel. And of course, for my podcast listeners, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and if you haven't already, please do leave a review on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening on. All those things help boost the channel in people's search results and news feeds and all that stuff, so the podcast reaches more people and I get to help more people learn useful stuff. Thanks for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.